Okay. All right, so I thought I'd just put together a little bit of what we've been touching on recently. Not a whole lot, just kind of working on the same types of things as before. But we kind of, at this stage here, now that we've sort of got everything, kind of roughed in a little bit where she's comfortable with the walk trot, pretty good with the canter work, and just has a basic understanding of all of that stuff, how to move the shoulders around and move the hind legs around, and work off the leg a little bit, and starting to understand a little bit more how to work from the seat. Just working over some poles that are just raised on one end, just to help her kind of, gauge how to place her feet and how to go over the poles, how to kind of figure out which end is higher and how she has to step to get over the pole, and just really kind of giving her just something to kind of think about and focus on. And the pole work too is good for getting her to kind of come up in the shoulders and use her back a little bit more, and just kind of get her body working a little bit more. Has to pick the feet up and bend the joints of the legs a little bit, and so it's just really good exercise. And this one here is really quite simple. You can walk through it, a bit of a steering exercise to kind of walk through it like a serpentine type pattern. Move the shoulders around. So if I come over it a little bit straighter on this way, and then we can work on the steering and the bendability in the body, and have her just sort of, again, it just gives her one more thing to kind of focus on and pay attention to. So you can kind of walk through it, trot through it, whatever you like to do. You can walk, just pick a line and walk straight through it. So you could come a little bit to where they're a bit closer together. One end's on the ground, one end's raised. Kind of work your way through it in a straighter line. Good girl. And it just kind of helps her loosen up a little bit early on in the ride. Kind of gets her used to things being around her feet a little bit more. Sometimes that's where, something kind of catches her by surprise and it's down lower to her feet. It's oftentimes where she's going to have a bit of a reaction to something. So it's just one more thing to kind of play with. Good girl. I've also now that we're at kind of this stage of her learning, and like I said, we have things sort of roughed in where she has a fairly good understanding of how to work off the bit, the leg, and all the aids. It's obviously it's not perfect, but it's a good start for the amount of time that she's had. So we get to this point, especially with horses that tend to be pretty heavy on the forehand and really need help with kind of elevating the shoulders and opening across the chest and just carrying themselves a little bit differently, and so that we're not kind of constantly working from her face. Then I start to ride them, and I ride probably almost all the young horses and a lot of the older ones too in a neck strap. And it is nothing fancy. Mine is just an old stirrup leather that I sewed the ends together. And just to kind of help her through the use of the neck strap, you can teach them, first of all, to kind of back up from it. Good. Yeah, that's good. And if you teach them to rein back from the neck strap or a neck rope, whatever you want to use, oftentimes you can teach the rein back sooner from that and easier, because they don't feel kind of restricted in the front and short in the neck and kind of get a little panicky. But if you start with using it as a rein back aid, then when you start to, it has the benefit of when they go to rein back, they kind of elevate the front end and step back instead of just kind of collapsing and dragging themselves backwards. So they get a feel for, really elevating the front end, the shoulders, and working the body more so than working their face or their head. And then you can start to play with, you can steer the shoulders around. So if I lay it on her left shoulder here, I can bring her around. Using my body, of course, too, my outside leg comes slightly forward to the shoulder. And I can work then on steering the shoulders. And, you can think of it even as steering the saddle, because ultimately that's what we would like to do, is not pull her around from her face, but ride her around from the body. So then she has the opportunity to use her whole body, because we're not pulling her short in the neck or causing some restriction in the front. And which for a horse like her is also really important, in the sense that if she feels too restricted in the front, that's when she has a tendency to want to default to her go-to, which is rearing up, right? Something that she's always done. She hasn't done that for a while, but it would, like I said before, it wouldn't be hard to get her to the point where that's what she does. So we can kind of work the reins in one hand and steer the shoulders with the neck rope, lay the reins there, close up the left side of my body, bring my left leg a bit forward, and then just release the rein and the rope at the same time. Bring the shoulders around the right. If she starts to get a little too, starts to push through the neck rope in the turn, or kind of push a shoulder out, we could always then stop her and rein back. Yeah, good. Just to remind her not to run through the hand. She got probably a day or two before she's a jumper. But so if she starts to get a little strong and run through the hand, we can remind her, set her up, step her back a step or two, and just give her that understanding that if she starts to get a little too forward and a little too strong, that we can just use that as a bit of a reset. And where you really start to feel more of the benefits of this is when you start into more canter work, and she starts to be a little bit on the forehand and a little unbalanced. The better understanding she has of this neck strap at the walk and the trot, then when you pick up on it in the canter work, you'll feel them really kind of rise up underneath of you. The front end comes up, the withers, the shoulders, the withers, everything just lifts up underneath of you, just because you're speaking more directly right to the front end. Good girl. So another thing that I really am starting to be more aware of as she's working is in the halt now. I'm going to take some weight down into the stirrups, pretty strong. Hold the weight there while we're standing still. And then when I rein back, I'm going to lighten the weight in my stirrups and rock my weight a little bit forward off my seat bones, and then step back. And then down into the stirrups, and then walk on. And if we use that weight into the stirrups as a stopping aid right now, and then we do the rein back from shifting our weight a little bit forward and making our seat bones a little bit lighter, then you can, as the training progresses, we can really start to play with that, stepping down into the stirrups to not necessarily to come to a halt, but you can start to play with the forward. If she's going forward in a bigger trot or a bigger walk, and we step down into the stirrups, we can kind of keep the feet on the floor a little bit longer. Good. And then we can go out from that. And it's something that's called stirrup stepping that's been around forever. But if you start to alternate that, once they understand more and more, you can step down to the right stirrup or the left stirrup. You could keep the hind leg on that side on the floor or on the ground just a little bit longer. You can use that in instances of half halts or transitions, or just when you're really kind of starting to fine tune things and and bring everything a little bit clearer and with a lot more refinement to it. So we just start to do that now as we're walking around. I'm going to sink down into the stirrups a little bit, pick up on the neck rope, see if we just stand at a halt. Then I'm going to just draw my heels up slightly, rock my weight forward, and lightly pick up on the neck rope, and then back down. Good girl. Also for them, it's a really good exercise in tuning in and waiting and just bringing some awareness to them as to what it is that we might be going to do next. Again, without having to kind of pull on her face or get really strong with the neck rope. So we're just sort of taking all of the things that she has an understanding of and starting to just fine tune them a little bit within, as much as we can at this point. Step down, maybe the reins where she starts to walk through a little bit more. Good. Lighten my seat. And there she's already, when she feels that weight shift, she's already starting to shift her weight back. And we can steer her around at the trot here. You can pick up and move the shoulders a little bit to the left. Good. And I always have the reins if I need. I can bring them into play as needed. But if I can position my body a little bit to the right here, bring the neck strap against her shoulder, and a little sit to the left a little bit, little touch with my leg and the strap. Good girl. Yeah. Use the reins, again, as needed, but just trying to feel if I can use them as little as possible, and just trying to work the body more so than the head and the neck. Just kind of letting the head and the neck be where it wants to be, and she feels pretty good. You can steer through here. And again, just kind of working the shoulders more and more. Really important for her. You don't really have to work too much on getting the hind legs underneath because they'll kind of come underneath and through a little bit more once we get the shoulders out of the way. The biggest thing with her is her awareness of carrying herself a little differently in the front than what she's designed to. So we have to bear that in mind too. We can't get too carried away, but we can help her find a little different way of going. By focusing more so on the shoulders, working around the hindquarters, and then forward. Good. Good. Then we'll play with some forward and back. So in the trot here, I'm going to just go a little forward and then sit in and just kind of working on half halts a little bit so we don't come right down to walk. If she does, it's fine, but the goal is to kind of just go from a bigger trot and down to a littler one. And just by trying to ride that sensation and that feeling in my own body and have her feel that. I might have to help her with the legs a little bit, but I would like for it to come more from the seat and my energy, and then bring my energy down a little bit and just slow the seat, but not stop it. The seat has to stay moving to keep the hind legs coming through and to keep her lower back soft and supple. And then I'm going to sit a little to the outside hind, bring my outside leg forward to the left shoulder. See if we can drift back to the wall. So we can start to introduce a little bit of leg yield type work. Not really sideways or anything just yet, but just a drifting back to the wall. Good. Do the same here. I'm going to sit a little bit towards the right hind. My right leg comes a bit towards the right shoulder. Tap, tap. Good. And back to the wall. And walk. Nice active walk. So she stays in the thought, the way of thinking of moving forward, so the walk doesn't just kind of fall into a little shuffle in the sand. We have a little bit of purpose to the walk. Feel like we have somewhere to go. Back into trot. Sit to the left. Close up my left side. Ride straight. That's it. And walk. Good girl. Take some weight down into the stirrups and just slow my riding. Hold. Lighten a little bit. Very nice. And there wasn't a big rein back there, but she did that mostly just off of the position of my body and my weight shift. So we don't need to go backwards a lot at this stage. It's just that she's thinking and she's feeling what it is that we may be doing. So she's searching for an answer. We don't have to kind of take her by the hand and give her the answer every single time. She starts to understand the sequence of cues, that lightening of the seat, and what usually happens then, and she's starting to offer up an answer. Not waiting for us to say, nope, you have to do this, this, and this. She now has a little bit of an understanding to where she can kind of take over and say, okay, I think this is what you're looking for. And when you get to that point, it's really nice then, because then they start to then you start to enter into a little bit of a conversation where they're offering up answers. They may not always get it right, and especially at this point, but they're trying. So for her, it's really nice to get to that point, because she has a tendency, or she can have quite a lot of attitude about her. And a lot of times she just, in the beginning, you know, it wasn't where she was trying to search for an answer. She was just telling you, no, I don't do that stuff. I'm not going to do it. You know, so that's kind of a little bit of her go-to. And then she gets frustrated and she gets upset. And then if she's going to start to act up, it'll be a closing up of the front end and kind of a laying on the hand, or laying on the rein, or laying on the lead rope. You know, when she was tied as a baby, anything again that we talked about before, anything that was a bit of a restriction to her was met with that resistance on her part. Now she's starting to get to the point where she understands enough of it that she can think things through a little bit more and start to come up with an answer. Yeah, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be like that, because there's probably going to be quite a few more moments of her temper tantrums and stuff. But if we can just kind of keep working on this track, can kind of start to get away from that more and more. That's it. Good for you. So again, just kind of playing with that mobility and that, how easy is it to bring the shoulders around. It's mostly from the neck strap here, my outside leg, and just sitting into my left side a little bit. So we work the left shoulder around the right hind, sit back on the hind legs a little bit more if need be. Good for you. And trot out. Bring her around this way. Good girl. So at this point of the training, it's nothing, you know, we're obviously not working on high level stuff. And, you know, fair enough, we can't really at the end of a few months, but that's it. That's it. Yeah, and just trying to feel in those turns. So if I were to turn the shoulder here, what I don't want to feel is that this right hind just scoots around and she pivots around the middle of, yeah, good. I want to feel like I can encourage the right hind or the outside hind, no matter what direction we're going. I want to have the feeling that I can encourage that hind leg to stay stepping under her body and not just step out sideways. And then she just pivots her body around her inside leg, and she's just straight and braced. So I might not have, you know, correct or super bend at the moment. Good girl. But I do feel like I can encourage the right hind in this direction to not step out wide. So, you know, we kind of get the whole body involved then. Good girl. Good. That's it. And so, like I was saying, we're not necessarily working on advanced movements right now, of course, but we're making see if I can. Good. Just going to see if I could turn the shoulders there a little bit. Forward. Good for you. So in the downwards transitions in the canter too, lately with being able to use the neck rope a little bit, she doesn't just sort of stall and fall on the shoulders. I can pick up on the neck strap, feel the front end come up a little bit, and then as for the transition down, she kind of sits into the transition a little bit as opposed to just falling on the shoulders and really jarring into the transition down. If we were to use the reins a lot for that transition and shorten the neck and kind of cram her back a little bit, and then from doing that we position her so she's a little bit loaded on the front already because her neck is too short, then it's hard to get away from those transitions where she just stabs the floor with her front feet and kind of jars into the transition. So if she goes from a canter or even a gallop if she was, and stops on the front end like that, it feels like it's going to throw you through the windshield because she's just jarring into a stop. So we just start to work on those transitions a little bit and just kind of asking for a little bit of improvement, seeing what we can get, and then building on it from there. Good. Good. Ah, good. Yep. Very good. So like I was saying, we're not working on high level stuff or really advanced stuff, but we're really clarifying the things that she has learned over the last couple of months. And by doing all of this at the slow work, lots of walking, lots of trotting, jogging, and really taking time to instill all of those lessons in her and let them sink in, then the advanced stuff will just show up one day when she's ready, another couple years down the road or whenever it happens to be. All the advanced stuff is just the basics done really well. So we just take the time and keep building on what she has. And then one day, new movements just show up because of her understanding of how to use her body correctly, how to use her body in a soft, easy way that allows her to really mentally let go and kind of focus on what she's doing, feel what she's doing, and then keep searching for that feeling because it feels good. She's not working with a whole bunch of tension and anxiety because she's going to get her butt whooped if she doesn't do something. Good. She's also one that you would have a hard time doing that anyway, because if you want to pick a fight with her, she's more than happy to oblige you. So you kind of have to find a workaround. I mean, you have to have your limits, of course, and draw your line. She can't just do what she wants to do when she wants to do it. But you sometimes can't just grab a hold of her and say, you have to do this or else. Because she's content enough. She's content enough to fight with you if you want to do so. So finding a way that makes it a little simpler for everybody. Good. One other nice thing about the neck strap, this one, is if she does start to get kind of curled up or short in the neck or not really forward, you can just pick it up and kind of flick it a little bit towards the under part of her neck, towards her jaw, kind of encourage that opening of the throat latch and carrying her head up a little bit, up and open. So it's a really valuable thing to ride in. You could use it for your training rides, and then just kind of build up to when you're going to show her or whatever. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can buy fancy ones that really do the same thing. They just cost a lot. You can buy ones that are made out of, some that are made out of like a lariat type rope, and they're pretty cool. The only thing that I would recommend is that if you buy one or make one, that it has some sort of a way for it to break. If they, like this one for her, on the warm bloods, this one is not too bad at all, but for her it's pretty loose if she were to happen to get a foot through it or something. And that's what they say about the rope ones, is that if they get a foot through it or something, sometimes weird shit happens. So if that were to happen, you can get into a pretty good wreck. This is an old stirrup leather that's got a tear in it partway through, which is why I stopped using it, but it's good for this, because if you do get into some sort of a situation, it wouldn't be too hard for them to break it apart. So yeah, that's about where she's at right now. I'll probably leave it there. I just kind of wanted to go through a little bit of what we've been playing around with, and just to give you some ideas of what you can do. Try to do as much as you can with as little effort or as little strength as possible, for sure. It's kind of playing with a little bit this way and how you sit, and just feeling how she responds to that. Good for you. Good. Yeah. Yeah, very good. All right. All good. We'll talk to you later. Thanks.